I had a longer title, but our new template doesn't allow for long titles, so I have to shorten it. But I will be presenting some results from our experience working with municipalities and working with methods for dealing with deep uncertainty. So I will be, I think, presenter number 4th or 5th that will mention these metro diagrams and DAP methods. But first of all, and I have the privilege or the problem of speaking late. So some of the things that I will say have been mentioned already or touched upon. But one of the main issues in climate adaptation is that the decision support tools and the data that is provided by authorities is mainly relying on model results and on many very many levels. This is an illustration of that, which is almost 15 years old. But when you actually do talk about local adaptation responses, you are down here in a hierarchy of 5, 6, 7, 8 model structures where uncertainty is introduced in all of those on those levels. Uncertainty is usually differently handled in these models at the different levels. You have a lot of gaps as well, and if you're unlucky, this uncertainty propagates through the system and also multiplies. It's usually not explicitly shown in the final results what the uncertainties are higher up in the system. Sometimes you get sort of an ensemble. Usually you get an average, and that could be then an average, one scenario, one future scenario, one average for the global greenhouse gas emissions, one average for the global climate models, one average from the ensemble of the regional models, and so on and so forth. And then you sit as a decision maker, and you're supposed to make an informed decision on that. This has been, well, identified for a long time. Uncertainty within this, I mean, it's not constricted to climate adaptation, but there's been a framework of how to look on these uncertainties and different uncertainty levels then from research 10 years ago, basically, where we looked at where you do have different levels of uncertainty within your data, and where you go from this very deterministic, simple approach where you can actually, well, a simple model where if you push there, you know your outcome there, right? And perhaps you have some sort of spread, but usually you're fine with the deterministic result, and then you can go on to systems where you can express it in as probability distributions, for example. And then you go into uncertainty where you have to work with scenarios. And sometimes you know them and they are distinct, and sometimes they are multiple, or basically any scenario is possible. And then you go into some sort of system where you actually you really don't know what is going to happen in the future. And in climate adaptation, usually we have all of these at different levels and for different models at the same level, for example. But in the end, you might think that we end up somewhere here. And there we have been this deep uncertainty. The question came up earlier today. What it's been, well, the issues of deep uncertainty in climate adaptation have been sort of discussed extensively. And longer definition of deep uncertainty, which is relatively common, you have it here on the right-hand side, but basically is where experts don't know or don't agree upon the external context of the system that you are discussing. You don't know the boundaries, and you don't know, you don't agree on the outcomes of of the system or their importance. And there we come into this issue about what did you call it earlier? Conceptual uncertainty? No, consensus uncertainty. Right? Yeah. And we started from this, and then we looked at what does the guidance, the national guidance in Sweden say? And there is a national adaptation strategy from 2018 that identifies this as a problem for national adaptation, that we can't really say what the future will look like and what future Sweden as a whole should adapt to. And the adaptation strategy actually has 10 guiding principles that are fairly good. 4 of them are listed here, that you should take uncertainty into account. You should work with a risk-based approach. You should be transparent in your adaptation, so you can follow up afterwards what decisions, what assumptions were made. And you should strive for flexible solutions, since the uncertainty is so large. So you have to be able to change course if you are into a pathway of maladaptation, for example. But if you look at the actors, the local actors and also the governmental actors, they are not interested in this. They want simple solutions. They want simple guidance. What should we do? And we have been I've been involved in 4 projects, all starting with this Robusta project, which was a 5-year program, also funded by MSB, the Civil Contingencies Agency of Sweden. And then we have had some spin-offs from that. The latest one is a policy lab where Ulrika is involved. I don't know what happened to the format here, but sorry for that. But in the original Robusta project, we started by looking at what do the actors actually think about uncertainties when it comes to climate adaptation. And we concluded that the typical decision maker, to a very high degree, relies on competent authorities, and they are not interested in being presented with the uncertainties. They are usually not willing to work with scenarios, multiple futures. They want to, I mean, the title here of the slide is an actual citation from the interviews, that we want to know where the line is. We want to know if we're standing on the left side of the line, then we're safe, and if we're on the right side, we're unsafe, so to speak. So they don't want the uncertainty. And they don't really want the decision makers to be involved here either. They want experts to decide what is a certain and safe future or not. And this is not compliant with the idea of deep uncertainty, where we can't say this. And we then looked at, okay, so what do these methods for dealing with deep uncertainty say? Yeah, they say that you should do the other way around. There is this family of methods that we can broadly talk about as robust methods for uncertainty. And they basically say that we should do it the other way around. We should embrace the uncertainties. We should hug them and really work with them, getting to know them. We should not start with the models and the external context. We should start with our own decision-making context. And we should strive for robust solutions then. And then robustness is defined broadly as something that works sufficiently well in as many possible contexts as possible. We should not try to optimize things. We should try to make solutions robust to different futures. There is a philosophical background to this as well. My colleague Per, who is a philosopher at KTH, has been working for quite a long time, and before the adaptation part with uncertainty management, where we have this tuxedo fallacy. That's Sven-Ove Hansson, who's a risk philosopher. But basically what it says that if you are in the uncertainty levels of 1 and 2, where you actually have certain outcomes or can express them as probabilities, then you have certain models and certain methods to use. But if you're at higher levels of uncertainty, you should be very wary to use those methods or try to adapt your data so that those methods work. You should not expect to dress in a tuxedo when you're entering the uncertainty jungle. That's basically the idea of the tuxedo fallacy and the article from the casino to the jungle. You should use other methods. And back to the decision makers. One of the main differences here when you look at the decision making, this is the simplest idea of how a decision is made based on evidence or model. Risk analysis, that you have some evidence, you have some experts analyzing the evidence using methods or whatever, models or whatever, and they provide some sort of decision support that the decision maker can say yes or no to. I mean, that's the basic rationale for a risk analysis decision. But if you have uncertainty that is not possible to express within the standard risk concept, you have more processes involved here. The experts themselves do value-based decisions when they are doing their analysis. And that is fact-based, but it's also value-based. What the assumptions that you actually make when you do your analysis are based on your values. And the decision maker is usually also making a review of the decision support that is provided before the decision. And here we get a mix up where both the experts and the decision makers are actually making value-based analysis or reviews of the data. And this is what is needed. This is nothing bad. I mean, you can't be objective when you can't, if you have uncertainties that you can't quantify in that way. You have to sort of motivate your assumptions and your conclusions. But you have to collaborate in this. The decision makers have to know what sort of assumptions that have been made and why, and vice versa. So that is sort of the rationale why you should use other methods. Then we looked at how is this reflected in policy in Sweden then, both the needs for these methods, actually the mandate to use them. And it's fairly, but it's poorly reflected. I'm sorry, this is in Swedish, but we did look at some of the action plans. There are 54 governmental authorities that are obliged to have action plans, climate adaptation action plans, and we looked at how many of those mention uncertainty, risk management, robust or flexible methods. And it's quite few, and if they actually mention them, it's more of it's not the methods that are being discussed. They might observe that uncertainty is present. They might say that we strive for a robust society, but they don't look for robust solutions and so on. On the right-hand side, we actually have a more detailed, and you can see where it's green, the action plans actually involve some sort of methodology or reasoning around, not just mentioning the words. So it's fairly poorly implemented within policy. So it's basically just written in the national strategy that we should work this way, and no one does it. We try to, at the municipal level, to test some of these methods in these projects. We have the first Robusta where we tried that methods in 3 municipalities. Then we have this follow-up where I was not very involved, 5 municipalities. And then they made a Swedish adaptation of the DAP methodology. And then we have this other project. So we've been trying these methods. We have been producing these metro maps as well. And we actually made a Swedish version of the DAP so that people don't have, yes. 2 slides. So it's but in the other project, we realized that, okay, we can't really, if we are supposed to, if we recommend to start in the decision context, we shouldn't really recommend to start with methods. We have to take a step back, and we have to give some guidance in what methods to be used, which is quite interesting from Tom, your presentation, where you basically, on the other, as far away as from Sweden you can come, you came to the same conclusion that these methods are in many cases too complex. I will come back to that.
We can read it.
Yeah, great. The insights from the test is that even though the methods are quite difficult for the stakeholders to use, it does actually lead to different types of decisions compared to the traditional methods. It also led to very interesting discussion on risk tolerance. One of the basic things here is that you, according to the question about the optimization curve or whatever, yeah, that we try to involve the decision makers early to state their risk tolerance here, and they do work from the beginning with their own vulnerabilities instead of perceived risks. And it has been quite successful to actually work in handling uncertainties, though, but it has stayed on the sort of conceptual level. The municipalities have not gone forward and actually using the methods. And one reason for that is what we already mentioned, that complexity, even if the idea is quite simple, it's very quickly becomes complex in real cases. We haven't even tried the multidimensional, only what you call it, the multi-risk. When you have several objects with the same hazards, even that becomes quite complex. And another interesting thing is that the decision makers were not at all keen on flexible solutions. They want to solve something once and for all from the beginning. They don't want these things. They don't want to have a 50 or 100 year observational system to check when to apply something. Yeah. Okay, future work. I don't have time to explain the sausage thing, but we think that there is in Sweden, at least, there's a huge need for better guidance on decision making under uncertainty, because it's still there. Even if the methods are not always appropriate, the issue is not gone, and we need some national recommendations. And I hope they would be better than the New Zealand ones that actually mandate a specific method. And the problem is reciprocal. I mean, the municipalities struggle with this, but also the competent authorities like mine that actually supposed to supervise the municipalities. We also struggle with how should the supervision according to the legislation be done under uncertainties. It's not an easy question. And uncertainty, decision making on deep uncertainty should still be an active policy alternative, and that's where the sausages come in. That sausages are, policy is messy like sausage making. That's a citation from a policy lab article. But if you're as me, as a sausage maker, you actually know the ingredients and you know the proportion. So you have to sort of work with your policy processes and your knowledge, and that's where I. So.
Thank you.